Hey guys, Melinda Curtis here. I'm talking to you today about the Love in Harmony Valley series, which was a series that I started with Harlequin about 9-10 years ago. And I got a lot of those books back, and I'm writing a lot of books and novellas in the series to add to that. So I'm really excited about that all coming out this year. Last time we talked about Dandelion Wishes, which was the first book, and the fact that it was made into a TV movie, Love in Harmony Valley, which is where I got the idea for the series with this relaunch. That first book, I went back and rewrote about half of it to be more like the books that I write today. Today, I want to give you an introduction to book 2, A Small Town Second Chance. That is actually one of my favorite books of all time, A Small Town Second Chance. It's about Flynn, who is, well, let me set up the premise for the series. The series is about Harmony Valley, which is so small that the only people that live there anymore are really over the age of 65. Like 90% of them are over the age of 65 if they aren't farming or ranching. And they are kind of set in their ways. And these 3 men come back to town and are asked to help revitalize the town by some of the more progressive older residents. But the idea behind this series was my parents at the time were going through a lot of struggles for their independence, and they didn't want their lives to change, but their health was changing. And I had to deal with it in kind of a humorous way, because if you didn't deal with it in humor, it would kind of drive you a little bit nutty. So although Dandelion Wishes is one of the more serious books in terms of tone and the issues that they're going through, the series does get lighter, and there's a lot more humor in it as it goes on. And that A Small Town and Second Chance is where that transition starts to happen. So the story is about one of the men that comes to town, that their idea for revitalizing it is to start this winery. In Dandelion Wishes, they get the approval for the winery. A Small Town Second Chance, Flynn is actually in charge of building the winery. And at the time, his grandfather's health is failing. And so he is in need of a caregiver, because he can't keep all these balls juggling in the air, right? He's really an app designer, an IT guy, a programmer. And he's also a little bit of a nerd in that respect. And he's, juggling the construction and his grandfather's health, and trying to think about writing a new app, because they made their fortunes selling an app. And along comes this caregiver. So with that setup, let me just read to you the opening. And it's about Becca, who is the caregiver that's going to come into his life and be the love interest. Becca McKenzie was sweet and lovable and trustworthy. At least that's what people used to say. But that was before a Taliban bullet widowed her, before her smile felt scarred, before she got it into her head that everyone deserved the granting of their last wish. That it was kind of important to me to set up Becca that way, because as a caregiver, she wants to give these elderly people that she's helping, their last wish within reason, right? And that's kind of gotten her into a little bit of trouble. Sure, go on. Ignore trusts and wills and judgmental relatives. Never mind the necessity of paper trails to protect those left behind. What had she been thinking? Not about protecting herself. She'd been thinking, screw grief. Sorry about the language. She'd been thinking that if you loved someone and they loved you back, fulfilling that person's last request was an honor. Sweet and lovable and trustworthy. That's what Becca's clients would say about her if they weren't all dead. That's a little bit grim. Becca's lips were so tightly sealed that grief had no chance to escape. Death was an appendage of being a certified nursing assistant who cared for the elderly. Easing their passing was a sacred trust. Whether they died of natural causes, of cancer or kidney disease, of heart failure, or just plain fatigue, life was exhausting, too short for the ones she loved, and, well, exhausting for those left behind. Exhausted, Becca sat in her temporary home in Harmony Valley, a don't blink or you'll miss it town in the northernmost corner of California's Sonoma County. Her home was mobile, 21 feet long, with rusted bumpers and an orange burlap dinette that doubled as her bed. She'd been in town less than 3 days, and now she was parked at the house of a prospective employer, waiting for him to get home. A classic black Cadillac, the length of a small cruise liner, turned into the lightly graveled driveway, moving slowly toward the army green ranch-style house where Becca was parked. The car stopped so that the passenger side door was even with the front walk. Becca hopped out of the motorhome and would have hurried to the passenger door, Abby trotting eagerly at her heels, if not for the penny she saw at her feet. Shoved between two small white rocks, the penny seemed bent and beaten. Becca picked it up and shoved it into the pocket of her jeans before waving to the elderly passenger through the open Cadillac window. Something my mom and then my husband and myself have done throughout the loss of loved ones is we assign a penny, a nickel, a dime, a quarter, a dollar bill to different people that have passed away. And so when we see those things somewhere, like for instance, I found a penny the other day in my house and made me think of my mom. That's who I associate pennies with. And so I use that within this context of this book to kind of show that she is the penny. When she sees a penny, she thinks of her husband and she associates it with, okay, I should proceed here. Like it's his blessing that he's giving through this penny, which I thought was super sweet. Edwin Blankowski's pale face was dominated by a bulbous nose, his expression stuck in a stroke-induced half-frown, framed by a stringy gray comb-over. The t-shirt at the folds of his neck was a dingy gray, the collar curled as if clinging to life. He was so clearly in need of TLC that Becca's heart panged, and panged again when she glanced at the driver, Edwin's grandson, Flynn Harris. Locals said Edwin was on the road to recovery. Flynn's eyes told a different story. They were the crisp blue of a morning sky, but sharp, so sharp, sharpened by the fear of loss, sharp enough to shred her hopes. So I had set up before that, she's just really exhausted by caring for these people that she comes to care for and then having them die. And she had been told that Flynn's grandfather, had just had a minor health setback and would need somebody temporarily. But Flynn's eyes are telling her a different story. For a moment, Becca doubted the penny, right? The penny which says to her, go forward. Flynn got out of the car and walked around towards the trunk, adjusting his baseball cap over his shoulder-length reddish-brown hair. Faded blue jeans, a wrinkled white Comic-Con t-shirt. Hello, nerd alert, right? He looked to be in his mid-20s, same as Becca. His wasn't the domineering masculinity, but I can't say that word this morning, of a military man. His was the tall, wiry frame of an athlete built for speed. For the first time in years, Becca looked at a man and her body buzzed in appreciation. A totally unexpected response. She was looking for a job, not a date, and there'd been that penny. So that's their first meet. That's the opening of the book. And this is just, to me, it's a super sweet story that I love. Make sure you bring your tissues for this one because there's going to be some teary moments on the back end. But I do so love this book. It has just a very fond place in my heart. And I hope that you give it and the series a chance and you come to love it the way I do. Anyway, thanks so much for all your interest and support. And I will be talking to you later. Bye now.